Hi, everyone. Hi, Jen. Thank you so
Hi.
much for joining me today. I'm very excited about our conversation. I've been looking forward to this for a long time because we met a long time ago. I think we share a lot of similar vision about the role of CX in the world of business, in the world of um, transformation of CX and elevating the CX teams, and getting them a seat. I saw this on your LinkedIn, and I was like, this is so in line with our vision as well, like elevating the CX team's role and getting them a seat at the executive table. So I'm so excited about this webinar. And I looked at your LinkedIn. You've done so much. So I would love, I think, you to introduce yourself. Before I do that, before I give it to you, I quickly introduce myself. I'm Chyngyz. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Codiv. We've been doing these webinars I think in the past 3-4 months, and we've had some great, amazing speakers. And we would just want to share with the CX community, and bring amazing speakers like yourself and share wisdom and learnings with the community. So thank you so much for being here. I think our audience would appreciate if you could maybe share
Sure.
how much you've done and how much you're still doing and contributing to the CX community.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Chyngyz, I'm so glad to be here today. I just to give a little bit of context before jumping into who I am, I randomly saw that Chyngyz had a webinar, I don't know, over a year ago, that was just talking about his product. And so I happened to I was going to double task it, and I couldn't double task. I had to go all in because literally in 10 minutes you connected this whole AI bot that was 10 times better, that I wish every product I was using was using, right? Because all of a sudden it could go off of help me find the information I wanted from all of the knowledge bases and all of the videos that the companies have. So I have to say that from at that point, I reached out to you then, and I'm like, I need to know you, right? So I just was super excited about meeting you as well, and I love your vision as well. But yes, to introduce myself for anybody who doesn't know me already, my name is Jan Young. I am the founder and Chief Customer Officer of Jan Young CX. I'm also the founder of a community for CS leaders, CSMs, and people who are transitioning to CS. That's called CX Exchange. And it just newly rebranded. It used to be called CS Office Hours. And so I guess I've been I'm OG in tech. I've been a project manager, marketing, sales, account management, professional services, CS. I've done a lot of different things, and I think that's why I have sort of a holistic perspective about what how I see the post-sales motion and how it's a part of this overall life cycle for the customer. And it's also, I have an affinity to emerging tech and how we can use that and help evolve what we're doing. So I focus on that quite a bit as well. I've been a VP of client services in a couple of organizations that were startups that exited. I've worked with enterprise and other things. But anyway, over time, you end up doing a lot of different things, right? And but what gets me out of bed each morning is feeling like perhaps we can transform CS leadership, but also business and how we work with customers and creating customer-led growth. So that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Jen, so one question I have is, I think because you work with so many CX leaders, customer success leaders, and you help them with, right, elevating their role in the company. I have a question for you, which is which mistakes you see, which are the which mistakes there's emerging, or even is very well established CX leaders make when so which kind of prevents them from elevating their role within the company and from getting a seat at the executive table? Because I think which mistakes you see leaders make them.
So there's really kind of two sides of it. Well, It's always mindset, right? In terms of how do you see yourself and the confidence that you have in yourself. But beyond that, there's sort of two lines, I would say. One is certainly they need to see themselves as revenue leaders and understand the role of, sort of land and expand, and their role in that expansion, their role in the company. I mean, CS and CX, you're at a unique perspective, a vantage point where you're looking at the customer and you're looking at the company. And if you connect those, I mean, you uniquely can connect those. And if you do that properly, it makes everyone more successful. It makes your customers more successful. It makes your company more successful. And by virtue of that, once you start presenting that information, and you can do that even just with plain data, in terms of showing that, then you do get that seat at the executive table. So then they realize that's what they've been missing, and they need that, and they need you, right? The other is, it's funny because so often when we're working with customers, we think about it from their perspective. We're so empathetic, we're always sort of thinking about, what do they need and that sort of thing. But then as leaders, we need to do that cross-functionally. We need to do that across the executive leadership team, thinking about also from the board, what do they need, and understanding what they're focused on and how that intersects as well, right? And so often we don't do that. Instead, there's a lot of people out there who will just complain and like, well, why don't they get it? Why don't they understand customer success? Success, that they don't get me. It's like, well, do you get them? Have you taken the trouble to see where you intersect? And, we often are empathetic with everyone, but then the people that we're working closest with. And so those are usually the two things that I help leaders sort of fix in order to just make that extra step. Because it's usually I'm working with people who are already leaders, but they're just not accepted yet as part of the executive team.
I saw your I read your report. I think you have a free guide on your website.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend for everyone who's attending this webinar to download it and take a look. I saw that how you're helping like educate, CX leaders about company level metrics, like what product market fit means, right? If you're an early stage startup, like rule of 40, right? What does it mean? How to think about it, or retention, how to calculate gross margins, because this is what I think executive, team is thinking day to day.
Yeah.
And if you can speak the same language and actually like can tie your daily activities and metrics to the metrics I think this executive team cares about, I think this is where I think magic can happen, right? So
absolutely. And even like, that's another thing, the term ZIRP, zero interest rate policy, right? The way that if you start to understand what that is and how that has impacted the technology, industry and how we got to that bubble, right? Then all of a sudden, knowledge is power. All of a sudden, you don't feel like something has happened to you. Now you see, if you understand what COGS are and understand if your team is considered COGS or if it's considered over an OpEx as part of the revenue generators, that's also important, right? It's like you need to understand these things so that you can make the case. So often, sales leaders will understand how to make the case for enablement, but CS leaders don't often understand how to make that case and how to connect it to revenue, right? So all of these things, once you start to understand the language of business and revenue, then you're empowered and you can do something with it. And again, right there with you, like that's what gets you to that executive leadership mindset and working at that level.
Also, I think one thing which I personally believe in, I think there's just so many more companies, right? There's just so much competition, and acquiring a customer becomes just, unaffordable, right? It becomes just so expensive, and it's just so much easier to pay attention to retention, right? Which I think I saw the statistics. I'm sure you know like I think more precise number on this, but it's like around 6 times, I think, more expensive to acquire a new customer than to retain a customer, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. And it can be different by company and it is different, over time. I always go with a safer number of 5x, but basically it's way more expensive to acquire a customer than to retain one. And if you go down the line and you look at the next steps along that in terms of, how much it costs to renew the customer or to expand the customer, or if then they are referring customers in. Like there's basically, you go from 5x down to X for retention, down to 0.1x for that referral customer to come in as a customer, right? Now you've got a 50 times difference in cost for acquiring a new customer even. And so that's why making your current customers successful and turning them into advocates is the most cost-effective thing you can do, and literally leads to hockey stick growth. And now that we don't have a zero interest rate policy, right, that is why we all need to focus on this post-sales motion, because now we're going to go back to not growth at any cost, or it's just it doesn't matter if you're profitable, just get the customers in the door, to now it's like, okay, now we really are doing the land and expand motion. So we got to step up, because for the last 15 years, people haven't really had to do that, right? It's sort of been parts of it. It could be broken, try and fix it here and there. But now all the pressure's on. This is what companies are made of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, the way I see customer success is like the seeds. You plant the seed and you just, water it, you take care of it. At some point, it grows into a beautiful tree with a lot of fruits, and then the fruits is this referrals, right? Because the way I think about customer success internally at Codif is that we have three main metrics for customer success. One would be just renewing, right? The customers renew their contracts. It's table stakes. Number two is cross-sell, upsell. What are the products we have which can maybe provide more value to this customer? And number three is referrals. And the referrals from current customers are 10x more powerful than any other introduction, any other. So because there's a company which is using you and finds it valuable, right? So I think that's how I think investing in customer success, I think I think the maybe the most cost-effective ROI, for growing your business.
And I would just say that as a CS or CX leader, while you definitely want to have those metrics that you're tracking, those are really lagging indicators, and you need to understand what's going to get you there, what's leading you to those lagging indicators. And that's why then sometimes it's about advocating for enablement, but you need to show how that is connected to the lagging indicator. And so when you get down to it, it's really all about the numbers, right? And so then it's really about the data. And so then it's also, of course, AI, which, is another topic that's connected to all of this, right? Because you want to be able to understand easily and quickly what those trends are, and if you're meeting those needs. And luckily, things like AI and machine learning and having those things in tools now can help you see that more clearly in ways that otherwise, I mean, we are still in a land of doing more with less, and that's, I think, going to continue. Right. And so you do not have the time in the day to go and do all of these tracking and trends of these numbers manually. So you need to have all of you could even think of them as shortcuts, or ways that basically, or just tools that are going to help you do that.
Yeah. Also, Jen, you mentioned about this, leading indicators and lagging indicators. I really like this distinction because it really helps you focus on what's happening right now, what I can do today. And I think I like the concept of leading indicators because the leading indicator, in my opinion, should be it should be predictable. If you do this, it will lead you to achieving your lagging indicator, right? And number two, you can influence it, right? You can actually do something about this indicator today. So I always give this example to my team, which is revenue. It's a lagging indicator, but let's say customer engagement, talking to customers, having customer meetings, this is a leading indicator, which we can influence today. So which leading indicators you recommend your mentees and your clients to track and to influence, and which can help them predict to achieve this lagging indicator, the holy grail of customer success?
that is where, while you want to have the motion of understanding what those things are, that's foundational. It depends on the customer base and your segments and your products in terms of what you actually might need to measure, because the point is it needs to be intentional, and it needs to be what is actually leading towards success, and those are indicators, right? Because if you take a look at what you were just discussing here, where you just mentioned, talking to the customer, there are some customers that, yes, in order to have proper engagement, you should be setting meetings with them, right? Should have those discovery calls and that sort of thing. There are others that if you're trying to set up meetings with them, it'll take them away from their work, and there's very, that doesn't help them to take them away from their work. I actually worked with a client who was very focused on a whole sales motion that was about talking to the customer. So he felt that everything that happened post-sales should also be by talking to them. But all of the folks that needed to onboard and adopt and optimize, they were all customer facing themselves. So taking them away from their job was a big distraction and was not going to lead them to success. There needed to be other ways to engage them, right? And so that's the thing that often people will say, oh, okay, well, I just need to talk to them more.
Yeah.
The answer to that is maybe. Think about truly, and that's where you need to get into that customer set of shoes and look at it from their perspective and understand what is the best way to engage with them to help them lead to success, and what key activities should they be doing and what sort of timelines that are going to lead to that success, that's going to show that they've adopted and optimized using your product, right?
Yeah, super helpful. And I think in terms of maybe, just we talked about these leading indicators, but overall, like maybe any tactical tips, you share with, your mentees and clients on like incorporating customer success mindset into like this, executive level conversations. Like any tactical tips. You mentioned some stuff about metrics. Anything that you think, anything else CSMs and CS leaders can do.
Yeah, well, the dollars always get the attention, and otherwise, they do, because that's, we are running a business here, so you got to think about that. You want to take a look at then what your margins are, certainly, because what is it, taking to produce something? And then you want to be able to try and forecast from that in terms of, if we continue going down this line, what does it get us? Do we go out of business trying to support this product, or do we actually, expect that we'll become more profitable? Things like that. But then ultimately tying in, those types of behaviors that you're trying to get your customer to do, and taking a look at, with the company, you want to take a look at the messaging. So you don't want to go from the very beginning all the way through the whole life cycle, right? What sort of messaging is marketing putting out there? Who are they attracting in? Are they actually getting in the right qualified leads that are going to be successful later? That's the kind of thing that CS leaders can help identify. Which ones then are going to more likely go through the sales process? Is that messaging? Are they setting them up for the sense of partnership? Are they collecting the data? And there's a lot of tools out there now that through all of these conversations and data that you're collecting, that it can be entered in more easily into your CRM, so that then that can be synthesized, so that then when you get to onboarding and other post-sales motions, that all of the things that we're trying to do, we don't have to go and have an expensive internal meeting as part of it. Right? Instead, we have summarized information that includes the nuance from those meetings, that we can then understand why the customer purchased, what's going to have a business impact on them, and things like that, right? So you want to make certain that sale, anytime you have a handoff, whether it's from marketing to sales, sales to CS, or anything that, when I say CS, I mean the whole post-sales motion, what context they need, right? When you think about support, all of the information that they are gathering whenever they're interacting with customers. There's a lot of data there that they're collecting. What the challenges are with the products, or what sort of insights they have, what their pain points are. All of this kind of information helps, whether it's marketing, sales, CS, expansion, renewals, product, right? So you want to set up a system where, with as little effort as possible, you can pull in the information that allows you to see that nuance when you need to, or otherwise it lets you see the trends otherwise, right? So that's ultimately, I think, what you want to try and build. And that's why, as a CS leader, when so much of that is happening in the post-sales motion, like, you have a truly powerful position in helping the business succeed. And so seeing that and helping them connect the dots on that is important. The other thing I would just say too is, so often we want to say, oh, I got a product idea. I got a product idea. I got a product. There's so many product ideas. All you're going to do is overwhelm product. I think as a CS leader, you want to organize that in some fashion and say, here's what the trends of the information that we're getting back. This is what the value of these accounts are. This is what we think it's, if you did something like this, the type of value it could unleash, right? Because it's not just the current value of a customer. Oh yeah, but they're only spending $5,000 with us today. Well, they might only spend $5,000 a year with you because you haven't built out the things that they truly need, in which case they would spend $100,000 with you, things like that. So there's ways to organize that data to show, again, what is the dollar impact, but also just the nuanced information that we hear about what's happening in the marketplace. That is also critical to share with everyone, right? And to share across, for all of the executive leaders to share what they're seeing out there is, I think, really critical. But so hopefully you have a CEO such as yourself who brings this all together and allows for that exchange and that dialogue.
For sure. I think one key takeaway from now what you said for me personally is that the interdependence and just so like the customer success should be part of every conversation, like marketing, sales, post-sales, like product as well, right? It's just so important to keep focus around kind of this communication, right? Cross-functional communication. And I think because you have also this experience, you were in marketing, you were in sales, you were in different functions. So I think that's why I think you have this real holistic picture and vision. So, and I think I have a kind of follow-up question here, because just yesterday we were discussing with our VP of sales this idea where, like, how to make a transition. So for example, right, our salespeople are selling like Codif's products, and then and we've seen like different approaches, but in general I see two kind of approaches. Like, one is sales is gonna get a customer and do the onboarding, and for first year they will be responsible for still communicating with the customer, and they will share like the commission from maybe renewal between sales and CSM. And then the second year and onwards, it's going to be the CSM's responsibility. The second approach, which is like, salesperson gets the commission, they close the deal, and they just say like, okay, bye, and they just leave, right? And then the CSM takes over with some context, hopefully, right? From people. They will get some. But what's your perspective on this? Like, I mean, how this transition from like closing to onboarding and further, like what have you seen works the best?
That depends on a couple of things. One is capacity. What capacity do these folks in different roles have? Folks also talk about training and enablement, but I think that's sort of a second order thing. That's where you look at that based upon what getting people up to speed in whatever gaps they may have. That's just something you do once you decide on the structure that works best for you. But really, you want to think about the customer base and what is going to work best for them, right? So part of it is, again, anything with customer-led growth, you're looking at the customer base and you're looking at the company and what is feasible for both. So if for the customer, it actually works best for the salesperson to stay with them all the way along, then you would just want to ensure that you have a capacity for your sales leaders or AEs to be able to both look out as for hunting as well as that farming motion, right? And there's definite, benefits when they start to think about that. Because they have a longer relationship with them, so they don't necessarily want to, sell them the, different things than what they actually need, because they've got to answer to that directly, right? And if you don't have them answering that to the customer directly, then you have to think about the incentives that you're putting in place to ensure that they're just not saying yes to everything, trying to sell them as much as they can because, oh, I want to buy a new car next month, or something like that, right? Like you have to make certain you have the incentives in place. But then I actually also like, though, when revenue is handled by the post-sales leader, because then it is part of all of the whole process, right? And it can be part of the understanding. Usually too, it's easier with the incentives to help them sort of manage that life cycle. But the challenge can be, well, two things. So anytime you divide up, when you have more than one person handling an account, is then you have to have communication and workflows in place, right? So that becomes even more critical. But the other thing too is you need to make certain that all of this data gets out of people's heads anyway and gets into the tools that you're using so that you can quantify and project properly, right? Because you want to be able to understand the health of these accounts and the likelihood to renew and expand and what your white space is and who's at risk and all of those things. So regardless, that you want to extract that data out, you want to have processes for that. But if you have a relationship that you have built and the CSM is handling that relationship, that, the trust that is built and the insights that they're going to have on, especially for expansion opportunities, can be, just sort of almost a no-brainer, right? Like, but they can really, so at the very least, you want to be measuring it and have CSQLs, CS qualified leads, but it can be very successful to have CSMs handle sales. I've seen a lot of commercial CSMs. Sometimes though, if there's a lot of legal or if there's procurement or, other, or becomes a lengthy process and they don't have the capacity to do that and there are other, activities, then you might have a renewals manager or an account manager that's leading up to the post-sales leader. But in the end, you have to really take a look at what is the right structure for your customer base, for your product, for your sales cycle, for your post-sales cycle. And from that, then make certain you build in getting the data, the communication, and the incentives in place to make certain that all works.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think this was some kind of a selfish questions because we're kind of still thinking about this. Thank you.
Happy to talk offline with you anytime. No worries.
Also, I would love to. I want to just say to the audience, like, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat window, and we're happy to take them and answer them as well. In the meantime, I want to switch gears a little bit to AI and maybe talk about AI's impact. I think briefly before the webinar, I think we talked about like two extremes, I think, right? On the one hand, people are thinking that AI is hype. And on the other hand, everyone is just so scared that AI is going to do, like crazy things and it's just going to replace humans and we don't need any humans like in the future. And I think the truth is somewhere in between, right? So, would love to hear your thoughts on like how you encourage people, CX leaders, to think about AI and using AI in their work and in day-to-day work.
Yeah, it's funny because I was just, AI as hype, right? I was just listening to someone, a CS leader, earlier today refer to AI as hype. And it just, I think it raised some things on my neck here. I hate thinking, look, certainly there are phases in emerging tech when people get hyped up about something when they can see the potential in it before the potential is realized. But that's not where AI is anymore. Yes, it is still emerging but it's quick, right? Think about just in the short time since ChatGPT has come along, right? just what generative AI has done to now empower all of us to interact with AI. You don't need to be a coder anymore. It's the same sort of thing like when you have computers used to take up a whole room, and then they landed on your desk, and now they're in your palm, right?
Yeah.
And so like because of that, then you want to think about, how AI can be used. And I think we're really just starting to dig into it. I get most excited about AI that's native in tools, because then you don't have all of the legacy stuff to worry about. But that is something that I think that every leader and every individual contributor should be thinking about. How does AI work, and how can I start to incorporate it? And I don't think we've even begun to get there. I heard some stats that by 2030, I can't remember, was by 2030, I think maybe it's 20% or 30% of our customer base will just be other, AI, right? And when you think about that, that makes sense though, because there are ways in which AI can be automated and then can go out and, do purchasing and doing things, right? That it will do it according to certain rules. And so when you think about that, that is another persona that we will need to plan for, right? That we'll need to plan for AI that has been set up, to have certain criteria in order to purchase and things like that. Whereas when you're working with humans, it is, different. They also have criteria, but we also, have brains that work on emotions and other things. And so, although even, sorry, now I'm distracting myself. So I was thinking, even with ChatGPT, I have to be very nice to it, right? I have to say please and thank you, and say, you are the best marketer in the world. You're now going to do an LI post about these events, right? And then you have to say thank you in order to get like the results that you want. So perhaps emotion is the secret, for, no matter if you're dealing with AI or with humans, right?
Love this angle. Love this angle. Yeah. Any maybe tools you found very helpful, maybe, or you've been maybe hearing? I think people always like, recommendations, like which tools maybe for, for certain, not only for CSMs, but like maybe for personal stuff as well, you found very helpful.
Well, I mean, that's where it gets into that you need to, it's a tool, right? And so, yes, it's continuing to evolve very rapidly, but it is a tool. And so you need to first know, what do you want to use the tool for, to then decide what kinds of tools you're looking for. I guess I use, well, now I'm starting to use Gemini now that it was released the other day. And otherwise I use GPT, and I, as a sole business owner, I am, doing different types of tasks with it. And so I'm mostly thinking about productivity, but soon I'll also be trying to look at trends and things. When you take a look at NCS, I think especially understanding your trends of your data is critical, and you want to take a look at that. And then otherwise, you want to take a look at ways that it can boost your productivity. We're still, there's hallucinations all over the place with using these tools. And so you still need to take a look at it and say, do I agree with what it's given me, or how do I want to modify it? But, and that's where we have to also become experts in our fields to be able to analyze the results and understand, is it giving me the expected results? But yeah, in terms of specific tools, I think the ones that I have seen out there, I like when, say, you're looking, I mean, do you want me to actually name some? I can. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So like, I think it's kind of interesting when you take a look at, say, Staircase AI, right? When you take a look at bringing in all the sentiment across all the different people who are interacting with your customers and things like that. All of a sudden you can understand where your detractors are, or who your champions are, or gaps you may have, customers that are at risk that maybe you didn't realize, things like that. And you can get that nuance in it. When you take a look at, say, there's some other tools where, like, or when you take a look at, say, how Pendo is bringing in AI, even though that's a legacy tool, I think they've been smart about how they're bringing in AI, or like Intercom, and the way that they're bringing in AI for support. I love how your tool makes it really easy to take all of the knowledge base, right? Very easy to set up, to point it to things. And now, because that's the other thing too, in my day, I'm having to work, off of so many different tools. I don't want to have to watch an hour of videos that are all in 5-minute snippets and then try to retain. That's why we also I always recommend Britt Andreatta's books, where she's looking at neuroscience and how it relates to business, because you need to understand how people are going to take in the information. Right? You can't just tell somebody something once and then they have it. It takes 40 to 50 repetitions before it becomes a natural thing for them to do. So that gets into change management, that gets into everything. So when your tool in particular makes it easy for people to get the answer that they need, so that they're going to go back to that repetition of using your product. You want them to go back to it as soon as possible, as opposed to dropping it and saying, oh, I guess I'll pick this up later. I just don't have the time for this now, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways in which there's productivity even can lead you back to using the tool and optimizing with the tool. But again, I don't think that and I'd like to hear from you actually, Chyngyz. What do you see happening in the space, and where do you see it going in the next, I'll just say year, because 2 years ago we were in a completely different place.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, right? It's been like a bit over than a year for ChatGPT, to blow up, right? So, and we live in a very different world. So I think things changing very fast. So, and I think the pace of change, I think, is gonna be the same or even faster. So I think I like this quote. I don't remember who said this, but like, the only constant is change, right? I think that's definitely the case, I think, with generative AI. So our perspective is that there are a lot of tools now. There are a lot of like use cases, where like AI can be applied. And for example, for us, because we're more on the customer support side of things, we actually like think about the world of AI and applications from like 2x2 like matrix. So on the one hand, we have like this importance of business outcome, or importance of outcome and importance of accuracy on the second one.
Sure.
And certain use cases, certain applications, for example, healthcare or financial services, these are really like high business outcome, or even just high stake decisions, and the accuracy is just critical, right? So that's kind of one, like, these are the use cases where the importance of accuracy is just paramount, so super important. Then there are certain like other use cases where, in B2B world, it's marketing. For example, there are companies like Jasper AI or Copy AI, even ChatGPT, right? You can ask to write a marketing copy, and there's no like one version of a marketing copy, right? There could be multiple, and the importance of accuracy is lower, so the bar is lower. And the way I see about customer success, customer support world, it's somewhere in between. It's not as critical as a healthcare outcome, but it's not as negligible, or like, it's more important than
it's not brain surgery.
It's not brain surgery, but at the same time, it's not like this generic marketing copy, right? Where like, Copy AI or Jasper can help you with that. So we're somewhere in between. So, and the way we think about this is, I think it's going to be like, definitely, we believe in the human in the loop process in terms of developing AI, and that's kind of the like one step. And then like, I think the next step, the gradual next step, is going to be kind of embracing AI and bringing it to like like full automation. And at the same time, we see a lot of potential in, I think we haven't seen a lot of tools yet which actually would do a good job like analyzing a lot of data, and giving all the really good trends and really giving like this, even helping predicting certain things, like you said, the customers who
Right.
would or customers who would, you know, I don't know, like would renew, and
Mhm.
sentiment analysis is just part of this whole like data analysis. And I think this is where it's going to go. I think
Right.
more and more, because now it's just easier to for AI, because using AI is just easier to analyze like huge amounts of data,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. When
there's
you're like machine
success.
learning sort of AI. Yeah. Yeah.
Because now we customer success, customer support, we just collect so much data, right? We sit on so much data, which is just so important, and it could be driving a
Yes.
lot of value for the whole business. And I think it was underutilized, and I think AI will just push this to another level. And I think and we definitely think about this a lot as well in at Codev. But I
Yeah.
think this capturing this data, bringing insights, and I think this also can help, to achieve our mission, right, Jen, which is like elevate
Mm-hmm.
the X team's role. If I
Yep.
can really like, if I'm enabled to analyze data, bring insights which can drive the
Yeah.
business outcomes, I mean,
Yep.
of course, e- any executive leader would be happy to kind of, talk to us and listen to us.
And so there are a couple of things I was thinking about as you were talking. Just two things I want to mention, then getting back to what you were talking about. So one is, I think it's table stakes to use Gen AI for any sort of API setup. Like that is just going to be, you've got to make all integrations just easy. The other is, I've forgotten. So I'll go to the other thing. But when, gosh, there's so many things you're making me think of, but oh shoot, and I've had so much cold medicine this morning. So oh shoot, there's the table stakes there, there's the, oh my gosh, now I'm losing it. Say something else and then I'll get back to it. But oh, Fathom. Fathom is just one tool. Oh, and I was going to mention Update AI. So Update AI, what's interesting with that is you take a look at what it's doing for customer success, right? And all of those conversations. I think all of the nuance, like data is no longer just numbers. It's because of Gen AI, it's also now all of the things that are nuanced conversations, all of that information that we share all the time. I was talking to a business leader and startup leader the other day, and he was not recording his calls. I'm like, I cannot imagine not recording my calls. There's so much data that he loses with every conversation that is not recorded, that doesn't have, some sort of AI recorder in it, right? That's critical data that you need to have. And just what I can see in terms of the potential with your product, right? The types of questions that people are asking, right? And how that leads into, where the customer friction is, and what kinds of suggestions you might want to make to product and engineering, because of that, or the types of knowledge materials you might build out, or that they might access, right? Or how long they should be in certain phases, as they're adopting. All of these things, all of this becomes data. It's just data on top of data on top of data. And there's so many insights you can have, right? And I just think
Yeah,
it's an exciting time because of that.
100%. So one note taker I've been using in the past couple of weeks, it's a new startup called Sybil, Sybill. I really love it because you end a call and then you just get the summary, action items and stuff like that, and it's very, very accurate. So
Mm-hmm.
just again, right, going back to the productivity use cases. So
Yeah.
I think, and the way we explain this to our customers and to even like to people we interact with, it's like it's not going to be human versus AI. It's going to be human
Mm-hmm.
with AI
Yeah.
versus the human with no AI. So, and you
Yeah.
want to be on the right side of this.
Oh yeah. You can't afford to not incorporate AI into what you do every day, because you will just be completely left behind. It's like, oh, I don't want to use the computer, or I don't want to use the mobile phone. Like you wouldn't think of that. And so of course, AI is just going to be a part of everything, and it's going to be assumed. It will be expected. And frankly, if your product is a legacy product and it doesn't have AI, if you're not incorporating AI into it, even from the beginning of like integration and making that simpler or something, right? Like you should be thinking about it every step of the way. How can you make onboarding easier? How can you make adoption easier? All of these things, AI can help in every step. And hopefully CS leaders are thinking about these things, because that's the meat and potatoes of any business, even though I am technically vegan, but that is that is the heart and soul of it, right? Like what the customer does after they sign, that's everything.
Yes.
That's everything else. Is what do they do after they sign, and how are you going to make it easier? You have the potential of removing the friction now. Why wouldn't we want to do that?
Absolutely. We just spend so much time thinking about getting a customer, and then we don't think enough, I think, about like what happens after. So absolutely. Jen, I think this is a great segue. Actually, we got a question from the audience from Kevin Williams, and I think it's a perfect segue because you mentioned about existing legacy players, and I think can you see the question? So I'm gonna read it.
When thinking about AI, especially for CS, few pass. Use cases appear and can be taken advantage of from existing vendors. Yep. Specific vendors offer enhanced AI solutions integrating with existing vendors. Yep. And CS has to build their own solutions via AI. That is not optimal. It takes time to build it. And then, like think about, would you build your own CRM, right? Like, yeah, you could, but if you don't have a CRM business, why are you going to go and build your own CRM? Because what happens is when you're using a tool that has been built for hundreds or thousands of users, then the way that it gets improved becomes exponential almost, right? Like it gets improved so much. And so instead, what you're trying to do is build that same tool for your particular purpose. And you need then to hire more and more people to build out that tool. By the time you do that, it either only works for you, or you might as well spin it off to another business and make it so it can be used by others as well. And sometimes people do that, right? Like I've seen businesses where I talk to founders who will say, oh yeah, we built this for our business and then we just spun it off and now I'm the founder of it, kind of thing. But yeah, I think that it's harder. I think that there's small ways you can use AI right now, but pretty soon I think AI will be integrated into everything. That's my opinion. I don't know if you feel differently.
What's your take between 1 and 2? Like, for example, you have incumbents, right? And they, because I think, the big difference, I think, between, let's say, like AI, revolution versus like mobile revolution or on-prem and cloud, right? Let's say like this revolutions happened in our lifetime, right? On-prem and to cloud, I think, was pretty much like a kind of a distribution, innovation. Because the way I think about innovations is like two types of innovations which change the world. One is like distribution innovation, and one is technology innovation, right? So when there's a distribution innovation, right? So like people consume information differently. Let's say internet, mobile, right? Like it's a new platform shift. So then I think incumbents, they lose the advantage because they don't have the distribution in place. And so I think that's why, like, Ubers and like Airbnb of the world, right, emerge. But when you think about, I think, this revolution, AI revolution, it's not a distribution innovation. It's like a tech innovation, which is like now any incumbent can just, get access to the API and pretty much, do a bunch of stuff with their data and stuff. So that's why I think a lot of people think that this revolution benefits a lot the incumbents versus like mobile or the cloud revolution did in the past 15 years. So that's kind of like a challenge for startups like us, because there's no like distribution advantage, and that's one. And I just want to share like some thoughts on this. So, but the one thing which I would always ask myself if I'm a CX leader is, what's the core business model of the incumbent? Because a lot of times the core business model of this incumbents is still like this old way of thinking, like let's say they still think.
That's what I was going to mention.
in the old paradigm, right? And I think they're not incentivized as much to actually go and push automation, because if they push automation too much, they will reduce the number of seats on the other end, right? So
Right.
and you have to really understand, like, and be honest with yourself, like, am I okay if my vendor for automation AI is not super incentivized with me, aligned with me on like saving costs and stuff like that? So
Yeah,
that's
I
one.
mean, so if you're an incumbent, you need to think about being your own, cannibal, right? You need to you need to be willing to dismantle your own business, because if not, someone else will. That's the whole thing about disruption, right? And I didn't read the whole next question yet. I just saw that they wanted the link, so I put the link out there. But
Cool.
but so but what happens sometimes with legacy, and we all, well, for any of us who've been at a company who was legacy, I'm one of those, where like you have so much code that was built in, before more nimble and code was built, that you have to almost rip everything out and rebuild and still keep, then you have to try and work on and getting people moved over to the new product and all those things. And like even Salesforce, did, they built out Lightning, and now they're building out, Einstein and things like that. But you still end up with, customers then on the legacy, and then you have to support that as well, or do you shut that down? And all of those things become a factor that then the incumbent has to handle, that newcomers don't. So yes, you have the difference on the distribution side, but you don't have that different, you have other types of differences when it comes to challenges and benefits, being new versus incumbent in that respect. And so then also as a customer deciding between those two types of products, that's then something to think about. Like, is the incumbent going to be able to move over those hurdles, right? And actually then provide a product to you that's going to be cost efficient, that is going to solve your business need in the way that you need? Or are you better off going with someone who's new in the market, who is going to be more nimble because they'll have newer code or using AI, native AI and things like that? So that's something you think about from the customer perspective and from the business perspective, right? And so from the business perspective, if you're an incumbent, you absolutely have to think about, being willing to destroy yourself, to kind of be a phoenix and rise again, or you or someone else will do that for you.
Yeah.
You see that all
Cool.
the time in tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Jen,
What was the other? Was there
oh,
another? I don't know what the rest of the CS pros integrate AI solutions in their tech stack. What are the three first and most important questions we need to ask ourselves before proceeding? What I like about that question is, look, in the end, AI is a tool. AI is part of tools, or it is a tool, right? And so you think about, if you want to incorporate AI and the advantages that AI can give you, what are you trying to do? What are its innate qualities, and what do you need to get done? And so that's where then you have to have your own strategy and your own expertise first in order to employ it properly, right? If you don't have that expertise built out, if you don't know what your strategies are, then you're not going to really get there.
I also shared our article about
Great.
three things you need to build a robust AI strategy for CX. So I would
Cool.
encourage people to take a look at it. Also, another question we get a lot, which is going to be my second article, which I'm going to share here. It's about how to duplicate AI solutions, because there's just so many AI tools on the market. So take a look. There's no marketing in both of these articles. It's just helping educate leaders, how to think about which things to prioritize. But
Yep.
yeah, but these are really good questions.
Excellent. Oh, I'm looking forward to reading those. I didn't realize you had a whole blog series that now I need to pay attention to as well.
As we share sometimes I mean, I think we're learning as well. Like, and then whenever we learn something, we would like to share it with the audience as well and with our community. Very cool. Any maybe like parting thoughts, Jan, like before we wrap up?
I think we were pretty comprehensive. I was just thinking about that. Like, what else do we have to share? I would just say that AI is part of it, and you want to understand what it is, but it isn't all of it. You still need to step up as an expert and leader in your field, and understand where you want to lead your team, your customers, and your company. And so AI is not going to solve it for you any more than any other tool is going to solve it for you, but it is a powerful tool that can be used.
Yeah. I just want to double down on this. Like, I think, this idea of like, I think both ideas are, I think, kind of like unhealthy, which is like AI is just a hype or AI is just so like scary. I think I would highly encourage people not to downplay AI. There's certainly so many use cases where AI can help you. At the same time, don't be afraid of it, because I think AI still like it's not like AGI, it's not intelligence where it can do everything. So
you might need to explain what AGI is to folks.
AI is basically this idea. It's a concept of artificial general intelligence, which was developed, I think, in somewhere like in 70s. But I think after AI and this concept of AGI became like a moving target, because when ChatGPT came out, everyone thought that according to the old definition of AGI, this is the AGI. We pretty much achieved it, right? But at the same time, we see all the issues with AI, and so we definitely agree that AGI is still not there, even though like
AGI stands for
artificial general intelligence.
And there's also things that are sort of in between. So people are still trying to get to like this sort of nirvana where I guess we can just sit down and have, cocktails while AI does everything for us. But there's also the notion of like an agent, right? And maybe you can talk a little bit about that too, because that's sort of like an in-between stage.
Yeah, I'll take a look at this company called Multi-On. Like, these are my friends, so from Stanford. So they started.
Multi-On?
Yeah, it's Multi-On, and they're building personal agent, which actually can order cocktails for you. So
there you go. So we can just sit back.
they can order food for you. They can do they can buy tickets for you. They can actually do everything. So, and the concept of agent is like, where, you like give a task or whatever, and then the AI agent would just take it, divide it into subtasks, and actually can open the browser, can log in and do a bunch of stuff which would you do yourself, right? So, and that's kind of it's a big developing field. It's still kind of emerging, but Multi-On is one of the companies which I'm familiar with, and I even use for my personal stuff.
Well, and that's why then some of your customers end up being, other AI, because in a way they've been given criteria by you to go out and do these purchases, right? So they're not talking to you. They're not saying, hey, we have this in red or we have it in blue. You've already decided, no, I want this in black. I've already told the agent to go and get this for me in black. That's also, Mustafa Suleiman is also building some things out, right? I don't know if he's going to have it buy cocktails for you, but he's also, the idea of it being an assistant, right? And so I think how we live our everyday lives pretty soon is going to change in the same way that we couldn't have anticipated that we would have this, that I will never drive in traffic in LA without using GPS, on my phone and things like that. All of these kinds of ways in which it all comes together, and how AI is in the background for all of these things, right? Telling me which is the best route and traffic and all of those things.
Yeah. This is great. Jan, I think we're at time. So last question, if, attendees, people who watch it, where they can find you, how they can get in touch?
Well, you can always find me on LinkedIn, but I also have a website now. So I just put that in there, Jan Young CX. And if anybody's interested in coming by on Tuesdays, we meet up to talk about all kinds of topics. and we have a community, and that's CX Exchange. And so people can come by there too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. This was this was a pleasure.
I always enjoy talking to you, Chyngyz.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Thanks everyone for
right.
coming, and bye.